The Toronto Sceptres beat the Montreal Victoire 2-1 in regulation in the Bell Center. That's right, despite wearing their blues, they weren't in Montreal this game. And boy howdy, was it a good game. Toronto seems to love playing the building. It's always, I mean, they like to win, but the games are always close, right? They're always entertaining, and I'm sure all the fans that get to go to the bigger arena to watch these, like, it's a great show. Apologies that the video is late for this game, a day late. I was out of town with family for Christmas, and I was able to watch the game, but obviously don't have my resources to make the video. Important note about this game, Toronto didn't have Renata Fast. She's still day-to-day with that lower body injury, and they obviously don't have Allie Monroe, who is listed as day-to-day, is probably a bit closer to week after taking that awkward fall into the boards against Ottawa. She's out with a lower body injury as well, which means Hannah Baskin got her first look at the PWHL this game, and oh my goodness, what a game it is to be your first. To be against a bit of a rival and in one of the bigger buildings that the league plays in. Oh boy, that must have been something for her. Toronto, though, starting off this game, they started well, as they have been most games this season. It's kind of interesting how last season the problem seemed to be with Toronto that they could never start a game on time. They were always slow start. They didn't get a whole lot of pressure in the first. And this year, it seems like their starts have been really good. Their first periods are some of their best periods that they've played, but their thirds really take a dive. So if they can get the best of both and just marry them together, smooth sailing. Interesting note in this game as well, Elaine Chuli started in net. Obviously, Toronto has been doing a bit of a tandem where each goalie has gotten more or less even starts. This was Chuli's third start, her third win in regulation. I think a lot of Montreal fans even liked to see it. While Chuli was with Montreal, she didn't get a whole lot of starts behind Desbiens, and when she did, they were usually on the road. So I'm sure even the fans in Montreal like seeing the choo-choo train starting in goal in their city. Probably don't like seeing her beat them, but hey, what can you do? But the start of this game for Toronto, the first period looked great. They were out shooting Montreal. They had the pressure on Montreal. About 2 minutes left in the period, Jessie Comfer, poised out front of the net, gets a really nice rebound off of a Turnbull shot and slips it past and Renee Desbiens for the first period lead. Late in the period is always nice because it kind of takes the wind out of the other team a little bit, you hope. Sometimes it can fire them up extra, which isn't nice, but you hope that it kind of just deflates them a bit. But that line of Turnbull, Comfer, Zanin has been glorious. Every game they've been together, they've been the best line on the team. They are so fun to watch. They are so in sync. They gel so well. Having those two experienced players alongside Zanin, Comfer's having her best season yet. Turnbull seems like she's really turned it up this year, and I think the way that line is playing has just helped so much. Like, they're so fun to watch, and they're always impactful, even if whether they're scoring or they're shutting down or they're maintaining pressure. The line is just great. If Troy Ryan knows what's good, he won't touch it at all. Toronto did get in, they were better with their penalties this game than they have been the last couple. It's nice to see them building on the good parts and trying to reduce the mistakes that they've been getting in the past. The reffing in this game was a bit wonky. Toronto did take a tripping penalty, Claire DeGeorge, early in this period, but overall, the penalties were about even. It was 4 for Toronto, 3 for Montreal, and that's been hurting them so much the past couple of games. It's really nice to see them disciplining themselves a bit more and building on those elements of their game. Going into the second is always worrisome. for the Sceptres. The second has been their worst period all season. I think I've said it every video. They can't manage the long change. It seems like every time the second period comes in, they manage to get hemmed into their zone. Whoever they're playing just manages to keep pressure on them for the second period, and they can never get it out far enough or for long enough to be able to get a decent change. So then an already kind of shaky defense in their own zone winds up getting tired and tired and tired. And that's just never what you want. And that's exactly what happened on Abbey Rock's goal, where Toronto is just hemmed into their zone. Montreal has been putting on a lot of sustained pressure and really keeping them stuck. And then eventually Caitlin Willoughby was able to do a little kind of a shot pass. Like, it looked like she was about to shoot, moved it across into the slot for Abbey Rock, and there's not much Julie can do about that one. Rock had the whole net. 1-1. Toronto, it is only a 1-goal lead, granted, but Toronto has given up a lot of leads this season. I believe on the broadcast, they had a stat after this goal was scored that Toronto has given up 5 of the 6 leads they've had over the course of the season, over the games they've played. And that's not a stat you want to have. If you get ahead, you need to stay ahead. But Montreal was able to turn the game 180 degrees and decide they were going to be the ones with the pressure. They were going to be the ones with the power in the second period, and they were. But on a bit of a rush chance, later in the period, about 10 minutes after Rock's goal, Daryl Watts was storming down the wing and just, I mean, it's Daryl Watts. And just shoots an absolutely beautiful little ripper, beats Debian clean, and we are back to a 1-goal lead for the Sceptres. Noteworthy point, I was gushing about the Scepter's second line. Obviously, Watts scored that one. She's on the first line. But Turnbull got the primary assist on both of the goals. She's having a great year, man. She's having such a good year. Hjalmarsson would take a penalty a little later in the period after Toronto got a power play. Toronto was like 30 seconds into a power play, and Hjalmarsson took a tripping penalty. It was really unfortunate. I know that seems to happen a lot in this league, especially. It's one thing to take penalties and take bad penalties and take needless penalties. That's bad enough. Taking a penalty when you're on the power play, so it winds up being evened out to 4-on-4, and it, like, you get a quarter of the power play time you were supposed to. It really stings. And Hjalmarsson has been pretty good this season. That fourth line has been a really good line. But again, with the younger players, it's about just getting that discipline. And, I mean, she's been good on the power play as well. Hjalmarsson has. Like, she's found a role on this team, and she's been playing it. But those penalties they just don't need to happen. And I hope she kind of learns from that one. Moving into the third, again, Montreal, it wasn't quite as aggressive as the second period. Toronto tried to get some of their momentum back, and they were doing a really good job at kind of getting their own levels of pressure, but Montreal still did have the momentum, and Montreal was able to move with the momentum. So it was a bit more even, but I would say Montreal was more or less outplaying Toronto for 2/3 of the game. And Toronto obviously wound up ahead on the score sheet. Toronto has more wins when they're being outshot than when they are outshooting, which is a bizarre stat. I mean, maybe they're getting confidence from how well their goalies play if they're getting outshot. That's a bad strategy to have. But they were never able to get an empty net goal because Montreal did pull their goalie. Montreal had a lot of pressure in that last 2 minutes or so. They were really pouring it on, but Toronto was able to collect themselves in their defensive zone. Again, compared to some of their previous games before this one, hell, compared to earlier in this game, they managed to tighten up their D zone when it mattered. And it's about those kind of building blocks, those small things. That's about the players being where they need to be and playing the roles that they're told to play, and they're able to, with the help of some big saves from Elaine Chuli, they were able to not let Montreal get that additional goal, and they're able to get this one in regulation. And it's nice to see after how the past couple of games have gone, especially after that Ottawa game, they needed a bounce back. They needed a win, they needed a good win, and this is a good one because they had to fight for it. Right? This wasn't a game they were running away with. Like, yes, if you blow someone out, that's good. Obviously, that's great. But they were never able to relax in this game. They had to fight and they had to stay tough and they had to stay vigilant for the entire 60 minutes. And I think that's what the team needs to do every game. I think, especially with the problem they had in Ottawa when they blew that lead, it seems like they kind of just, they fell apart. They stopped caring as much. They stopped being as worried. They lost a bit of their grit, and that was enough of an opened door that Ottawa was able to storm back into the game. If Toronto can stay with a bit of grittiness and a bit of pressure through the full 60 minutes, they're fine. They're golden. You don't want to have to be barely holding on to a lead for that to happen, right? You want to win by more than one goal. But I think hopefully if they can see that difference, then they can use that as a building block and make the changes they need to make, because you want to be able to keep that pressure and keep heaviness over the opponent without being stressed the whole time. It was a game they needed. And I think it'll help them build. And I'm looking forward, especially with Minnesota coming up on Tuesday. I think they definitely needed a lesson in grittiness. For sure. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, sorry it was a day late. Click like if you enjoyed. Click subscribe if you want to see more. Back in the win column.